Hello everyone, welcome back to the tier list series. Today is part 5, which is the high tiers part 2. So basically, I decided to split the elite tiers into 2 because one video would have been over 2 hours long. So the last video we did all of low elite and then the rares and epics and mid elite. This video will do the rest of mid elite and all of high elite. So yeah. This has gone from a 5-part series to a 6-part series, and there will be a 7th part, which will be what I think the top 5 best and top 5 worst are of each rarity. And I will do reviews when 2.8 comes out. I will do reviews of all the new creatures and where I think they fit on this tier list. But unless there's like a huge update that happens, I won't be completely remaking this series. Probably until like 3.0 or something. So yeah, let's get started with the first legendary of Mid Elite, which is Kylosaurus. So Kylosaurus is one of the weakest creatures in this tier, but it's still an okay legendary. Toolbox isn't working. Just give it a second. Okay, there we go. So it's a resilient creature, and there are quite a few legendary resilients in this tier. So this is basically just Alanqua, but more defensive. It's slower and has less damage output, but it is much tankier, and it's got resilient rampage instead of regular rampage, which you could say it's a nerf or you could say it's a buff. I don't know. But honestly, you're almost always going to be doing long invincibility on turn 1, so I think it's a buff for Kylosaurus. Short defense is kind of useless on this, but it's still, like, not terrible. Swap invincibility is good. This thing used to be the ultimate troll for Indominus, but then Indominus got Fierce Strike, so that kind of changed. It's still decent at beating up cutting creatures. Alright, our next legendary is Ardontasaurus, which is near the top of this tier. Ardontasaurus has a weird matchup spread. Like, it can lose to some weak creatures. It can lose to, I think, Ornithomimus and Kalenken. Maybe Kalenken, I'm not entirely sure. And then it beats Trico. It beats Tricosaurus. So, yeah, it's got a weird matchup spread. So I think this means top of mid elite to me. Back when I had Resilient Strike, it was easily in high elite, but then it got nerfed to Fierce Strike, which brought it down a little bit. It still has a little bit of distraction resistance, so distract isn't the huge problem for it, for losing Resilient Strike. The main problem is dodge, because it has no way to get through dodge now. Anyways, so really low health for a sauropod, but really high damage, and a ton of resistances, and a very fierce moveset with some slowing and shield mixed in. Taunt Shouting Rampage kind of sucks. If it was Defense Shouting Rampage, it'd be just slightly better, but it's not really that bad. It's basically got the same cooldowns as Maxima. So yeah. Our next Mid Elite Legendary is Conor Tarkis. Conor Tarkis is... Where are you? Conor Tarkis is like kind of in between the middle and top of this tier. Where the heck is it? There it is. So, Conor Tarkis is basically Parataurus, but maybe better. In fact, let me calculate the effective HP here. So, 3,600 divided by 0.8. Okay, so it has 300 more effective HP than Carnotaurus. And then it's got the same base damage, the same speed. Its moveset is, I would say, better. Superiority Strike over Cleansing Strikes. Bleed isn't as useful as it used to be, so now Superiority Strike's definitely better. And then Group Decelerating Rampage, which is really good. It's actually pretty good for the flock creatures, which brought up the thing's valuability a little bit. And Long Protection is great, and its distraction is good. And then it has the best counterattack in the game. It's got a better counterattack than Parataurus. Yeah. Conor Tarkis is good. Although it's not the absolute monster it used to be. Alright, next is Venator. Venator is probably in the same spot as Conor Tarkis. It's another counterattacker, but this one's a more cunning-based counterattacker than resilient. So it's less tanky, with the same damage and speed. Conor Tarkis doesn't have any resistances. This one can't be distracted and can't be stunned. And then Definite Strike's really good. These three moves are fine, especially instant distraction for the counterattack. And then it's got, I would say, probably the second or third best counterattack in the game. Precise Shattering counter is good. Yeah. So overall, Venator is really good, especially at dealing with fierce creatures like Thor. I think... Actually, no, I don't... Does it beat Mortem Rex? I'm not entirely sure. I think it does, but it's really close. So yeah, Venator. Alright, Stevia. Stevia is kind of that, like, it's right in the middle of this tier. I used to overrate this thing quite a bit. I used to say it was like highly one of the best legendaries in the game. I see the error of my ways now. It's still a decent legendary though. Like, it's still got good health and really good speed. Its damage kind of sucks though, and the resistances, it has a lot of resistances, but the amount of resistance it has to each thing isn't very good. Like, it's the only immunity it has is crit reduction, which is absolutely useless, especially on a creature with a 5% crit chance. So the moveset is really good. Persistent Ferocious Strike, Precise Rampage, Defense Shattering Rampage, Revenge Distracting Impact. But the low base damage doesn't really help, so it's 4,000 in 2 turns, which is fine, I guess. Although, actually, I think Persistent Ferocious Strike plus a Rampage would be 4,500, so that might be the better combo. But yeah, this thing, if it was slow immune, then it would be near the top of mid elite, if not even in high elite. But it's not slow immune. Alright, Ardontasaurus. Ardontasaurus is probably at the top of this tier. It's like kind of at the tier below the best legendaries. But it is very good. It's very versatile and very annoying. Like, the damage output isn't that good, though it does have decent base damage. Its health isn't that great, though it does have armor and a lot of stalling moves. And the resistances aren't really good on this thing. But its moveset is astounding. All of these moves are good moves. Especially Camouflage. Camouflage is one of the best moves in the game, and so is Shielded Decelerating Strike. And then Dig In and Cunning Rampage are pretty good too. If this thing had a swap in damage ability, like swap in Headbutt, then Dig In would 100% be great on this creature. So yeah, it beats up Fierce, it beats up Cunning. Well, it beats up some Fierce. It doesn't have a counterattack, so... if this thing had a counterattack, like, make it have Aetherium's damage, but give it maximal counterattack, this would easily be high elite. It would just be Aetherium, but better. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that it's a Sloth with 126 speed? Yeah, this thing is awesome. Grylanken. Grylanken is in a similar spot, if not slightly higher than, like, Conor Tarkis and Venator. Grylanken's pretty good. So, it's got, I would say, a decent set of base stats. Its persistences aren't terrible. The main issue is that it does not have any good damaging turn 1 options, only having Cunning Strike and Evasive Stance. Honestly, give this thing Sidestep, and it is, I would say it's a decent bit better. But once you could Revenge Kill with Cunning Strike, and then whatever comes in next, you're going to be able to do back-to-back 3,000 damage rampages for a total of 6,000 damage, and then a free swap into whatever your next dino is. And if that's a swap in dino, anything is going to die. And No Escape's a really good move too. The main problem here is, again, the low turn 1, the below turn 1 capabilities, and it gets beat up by resilient creatures. But otherwise, this thing's really good. Okay, Interactor Gen 2. Interactor Gen 2 is kind of lower to mid elite. Remember when this thing was absolutely amazing, and it was extremely overpowered, and it was super hard to kill. The Resilient Strike didn't exist. It had Defense Shattering Rampage, 1,500 base damage. Yeah, that was insane, and I hated fighting this thing. Now, with the nerfs it got, and the resilient creatures, This thing is a shell of its former self. Although I think it is sometimes slightly underrated. It's still not that great for a legendary, although it's a okay legendary. So, good base stats. Okay, I guess, resistances. Cautious Strike, despite being in a resilient meta, Cautious Strike is still one of the best moves in the game. Mutual Fury would be good on this, except it's really fast, so I don't really think Mutual Fury works on it. Give it Camouflage, and that makes it really good. Actually, no, maybe not. Cautious Strike kind of does its job, but better. Maybe... I don't know. Distracting Impact is fine, though it's not as good in this thing as Defense Shattering Rampage was. And Evasive Stance is really not that good. So yeah, it does absolutely just smash through fierce creatures, which is what keeps it this high. If it didn't have such a great matchup against fierce, then it would be low elite. It also does pretty okay against other cunning creatures too. Okay. Next is Monometrodon. Monometrodon got nerfed in 2.7. Yeah, this thing was like near top high elite. This thing was amazing before. Now it's kind of mid to low mid elite. It's still it's still a decent legendary, and it's still a good dino. It's just a shell compared to its former self. Like, it's slowable now, and it no longer has a rampage. And while for some creatures, having Fierce Impact instead of Fierce Rampage might be a buff due to having a turn 1 Shattering move, on this thing, I don't think it's quite as big as a... I think it's a nerf, getting rid of the Rampage. So yeah, so it's got a good set of base stats, and still, despite losing the slow immune, still has really good resistances. And then its moveset is still a reasonable moveset. Null Strike's really good. Distracting Impact's fine. Fierce Impact's fine. Fentritic Strike you'll probably not be using very much in this. Yeah. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's not bad. Monomiamus. Monomiamus is probably near the bottom. In fact, it probably is the weakest creature in this tier. I still think people underrate it sometimes. It's still a okay legendary. I don't know why they gave it the base stat nerfs, and I think it was 2.2. Like, why couldn't you just keep it at 3,900 health and 1450 damage? That would have been great. This thing would be probably near the top of mid-elite if that was the case. But no, they had to nerf it. At least keep the damage. Like, if 1450 damage here would still be good. So yeah, good health for a cunning, low damage for a cunning, really high speed, good resistances, and the moveset's kind of where it falls apart. Like, swap and dodge, instant distraction, and yeah, those two moves are good, like really good. Evasive stance is kind of trash, and then these two moves are fine. Yeah, it's not as good as it was a few patches ago, but I don't want to say it's low elite. Alright, Stegotops. Stegotops, in my opinion, is heavily overrated. It's been overrated since 1.9 when it got the big swap and nerf. Like, before that, it didn't have swap and stunning strike before, but it had such astounding matchups in 1.8 and really good base stats and a really good moveset. And then 1.9 comes and all that gets nerfed, and then 2.0 comes and all that gets nerfed even more. Yeah, Stegotops has gone down a rocky path. That said, it's still not a bad legendary at all. It's still a pretty good legendary in my opinion. Like, it's not a great legendary, but it's a good legendary. The base stats are really bad, but it's the same with all Ceratopsians. Distraction is really not good. Give it Cunning Strike to maybe be a little bit better. Dig in on a swapping creature is really good, and swap and Stunning Strike is obviously great. These two moves are actually pretty good, though. Slowing Impact's good, and Greater Stunning Impact's good. Unfortunately, it's the only creature in the game with Greater Stunning Impact, and then Greater Stunning Rampage no longer exists, which is sad. However, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, the damage output kind of sucks. 3,000 2 turns isn't good. Although, I guess combined with the swap in, it can kill some things in 3 turns. Yeah. Anyways, next is Quetzal. Quetzal is right in the middle of this tier. And Quetzal is incredibly underrated. Yeah, it's a fast counterattack dino, but it's done right. This thing is it's basically a medium pterosaur, but it's actually good. Its health is really good. Its speed is really good. Its attack is weak, but it has a counter and 2 impacts, so I think it balances out. Superiority strike is pretty good. Long defense strike is pretty good. Null impact is pretty good, and impact and run is pretty good. This is one of the weaker counterattacks, but it's a counterattack, so it's automatically good. Yeah. You could just either spam long defense strike or do a null impact impacted run combo, all while getting counterattacks off and doing more damage. Unfortunately, this thing gets absolutely wrecked by fierce creatures. Kylosaurus, the other counterattacker. I would put it in the same spot as Quetzal. This one's even more underrated than Quetzal, honestly. Kylo is actually pretty good. It is incredibly tanky. It's basically just a weak Dilowakkirus. Well, weaker Dilowakkirus. But it's still good. Its health is fine, but it has 30% armor and 3 shielding moves, which is insane. Especially on a counterattacker. Why is this called Precise Piercing Strike? What the heck? I'm pretty sure it's Precise Piercing Counter. I'll have to tell Apophenia about that. Yeah. It's got average counterattack damage. It is really, really slow, which is an issue, but it has Resilience Strike, which can help in that situation. Overall, it's pretty good. Smilocephalosaurus. Smilocephalosaurus is tied with Rhinoceros for being the best in this tier, or at least the best legendary in this tier. Smilocephalosaurus is basically like Brylankin, but a little bit better. It's less on the damage side, but it can do this combo on the first 2 turns. It also has a swap-in ability. Deliberate Prowl is better than Evasive Stance, and Evasive Strike, it's probably worse than Cunning Strike, actually. It's got less damage, more speed, more health, but it doesn't have armor, so the effective HP is a little bit less. And then less resistances. So, Smiloceph, you're gonna do Precise Pounce, Rampage, and Run, free 5,600 damage in 2 turns. That's gonna kill basically anything. And then you get to run out into the next creature in your lineup. And if that's a swap-in ability creature, bonus points. Smiloceph's good. However, I do think it is overrated a little bit, and that same applies to Rhinoceros. Alright, Stegotius. Stegod is near the bottom of this tier. I would say it's slightly better than Kylosaurus, although some people disagree. So, this thing has a lot of health and 30% armor. It's basically offensive Notopatatitan. It's got more damage than Notopatatitan, and more multipliers than Notopatatitan. Still has short defense, and still has Resilient Strike like Notopato. But it still has like a decelerating type impact move. But it also has Resilient Rampage, instead of the weak move that is Bellow. So, you can do a pretty decent combo in 2 turns. I believe that is 3850 in 2 turns, which is not bad at all. Especially for something this tanky. However, it still gets wrecked by Fierce. Which is why it's near the bottom of Mid Elite. Trostonics is another one of the top legendaries in this tier. You may say that this is a raid dino, but it's actually pretty viable in Arena too, at least for a legendary. So it's got a very respectable set of base stats. In fact, I believe, except for crit chance, they're the exact same as Monometrodon. Resistances are... It's got higher deceleration resistance and higher... And it's higher distraction resistance and it's decel immune, but I think the other resistances are worse than Monometrodon's. And then its moveset is really good too. It's a pure Fierce moveset instead of a Cunning Fierce moveset like Metrodon. But for what it is, I think it works well. You could do Defense Strategic Strike, Fierce Rampage for a 2-turn combo of 4,200. Or you could do Ready to Crush and Fierce Rampage for another 4,200, but with a high crit chance. I believe a 50% crit chance. And if you crit a 4,200 move, I believe that is 5,150 damage, which is a lot. And then Refresh is its main way of combating cunning creatures because it speeds itself up, allowing you... You could go Ready to Crush and then Refresh and heal for 2,100 because of that Ferocious buff. Then hit him with that 4,200 Rampage and basically one-shot said cunning creature. Although anything that's faster that has a speed up move will combat this pretty easily, and a dodge ruin system too. So yeah, it's good. Tyrannolophosaur. This one is on the higher end of this tier. It's a cunning, fierce theropod thing. It's basically a chomper with cunning abilities. So yeah, despite having really high base damage, it's actually on the lower end for the Rex type chompers. And also it's kind of lower in health, but it does have high speed for a chomper like this. So Cunning Strike and Distracting Impact are the cunning moves, which is what it used to fight other chompers. And then these two moves are what it uses to chomp down on the resilience and do a lot of damage in the process. The most common combo is Distracting Impact and Fierce Rampage, which is a number that... Okay, I was going to say I won't calculate it, but I guess I will. I believe that is 5,745... No, 75 damage. That's a lot of damage. Yeah. It's a chomper. It's still going to die to cunning creatures, like all chompers. But it's still good. What am I doing? I did not mean to click that. Okay, time for the uniques. Starting with Dilowakkirus. Dilowakkirus is basically upgraded Diloranosaurus. This is probably one of the weakest creatures in this tier. I went way past it. Jeez. There it is. So, Dilorak is bad for a unique. It's almost the exact same as Diloranosaurus. It just has a little bit more health, more speed, bleed immune, higher stun resistance, and that's it. That's all the difference. It's an upgraded Diorano. It's still not good. And yeah, it still has 3750 in 2 turns, which isn't bad. And it's somewhat fast and has good health. And can heal a lot, but it's just not that good. It's not good. Dies to other cuttings and dies to resilience. Okay, Interactor. Another one of the weakest creatures in this tier. I would put this at around the same spot, if not probably slightly higher than its Gen 2 variation. Interactor's still pretty bad for a unique. So, it's got good base stats. In fact, it's like Monometrodon base stats, but with more speed. Its resistances are pretty good, too. The moveset is just really not it doesn't work in this meta. Cutting Strike, Cleansing Impact are good moves, but Armor Piercing Rampage really isn't that good, and Evasive Stance sucks. So it's got a good 2-turn combo of 4,900, but this thing is going to get wiped by any resilient creature. Yeah, it just is. In the current environment, Indoraptor is bad. Pokendactylus. Pokendactylus is either the strongest or the second strongest of the mid-elite uniques. Pokendactylus is pretty good, I'd say. Well, it's a good dino, but it's still a weak unique. This thing used to be, like, before 2.6, this is, I would say, high alpha. It was probably the worst unique to ever exist in this game. It was absolute garbage. Now, it's better. So, high speed, health, low damage. It's a cunning counterattack creature, basically. Well, cunning fierce, because it's defense shatter. So, basically fast Venator. Side flap is basically sidestep except it taunts, but since this is a PvP thing, it is identical to sidestep. Distraction kind of sucks on this. Like, if you gave this thing distracting impact, then it would be high elite. Fearless flap is really good, and Groupus and distractions alright. although it's probably weaker than the regular as a distraction due to it having a longer cooldown. And then defense shatter encounters. So this thing absolutely deletes fierce creatures. It beats Monometrodon Rex. Basically beats almost every pure fierce creature in the game. Yeah, it's alright. Terrafx. This is the other one that is either the strongest or second strongest mid elite unique. So this is it's probably I would compare it to Daryx, except it's cutting fierce instead of fierce resilient. So it's got a bit less health, but the same damage, more speed, much more resistances. These resistances are one of the best sets of resistances in the game. Like slow immune, stun immune, can't be swap prevented, can't be bled, high distraction resistance, rend resistance, and 129 speed. I think this is the fastest D-cell immune creature in the game. Alright, so Bending Strike, admittedly kind of bad. Minor Swoop is really not that good. And these two moves are alright, and Swap and Wound's good. So, you usually Swap and Wound and then Distracting Impact, and then either Minor Swoop or Null Impact. Depends if you'll survive. If you'll survive that turn, then probably Nullifying Impact. If you won't, then Minor Swoop. So yeah. Vexus is... it's okay. Okay, Stegotops. This is probably the weakest unique in this tier. It's another swap-in based bleed dino, but it's worse than Terrafx's. So this is Daryx is unique. So, mid-leveled health, low damage, and high speed. With, I guess those are okay resistances for a swap-in dino, with a swap-in bleed dino. The moveset is just the most contradicting, unnecessary moveset ever. Why does it have swap and invincibility? Just give it swap and wound from Daryx. That would make this thing at least a little bit better. No escape's good, but the next issue is, why the heck does it have two swoops? One of them cleanses and makes you and is available on turn 1. The other one doesn't cleanse but isn't available on turn 1. So there's gonna be few situations where you're gonna need lethal swoop. Just change it to lethal wound so it can be used on turn 1, and then keep cleansing swoop so this thing could be a bleed stacking king, and then keep swapping wound in the mix too. That would make this thing actually pretty good and maybe even high elite. But no, you have this. Instant invincibility is also not that good on this creature, and it's only such fine, I guess. It's only, on this creature, it's not that great, but it's still okay. Honestly, it's probably the best move on this thing, except for Punting Swoop. Yeah, Daryx is hilariously weak for unique, though it's better than Spinal Constrictor. Last unique in this tier is Toromoloch. Toromoloch is in the same spot as Dilowakkirus. It's another raid unique. In fact, this is probably the best creature in the game for raids. So compared to Dilowakkirus, it's got 2 more speed and 150 less health and base stats. It's got, it doesn't have bleed immune, but it has 50% distract resistance, D-cell immune, and 50% swap prevention resistance. So I would say the resistances are better. So group superiority is just superiority strike in arena. It's fine, I guess. Lesser group heal is actually probably the weakest move on this thing for PvP. Great emergency heal's good on it because it heals 3,000 health, which is a lot on a 4,200 health creature. And then group acceleration is what keeps this thing out of low elite. Group acceleration is insane. It's a priority move that you can use on turn 1 and with the 1 turn cooldown, and then it attacks 1 times, and then it increases your speed by 50% for 3 turns. It will make this thing faster than every creature in the game. And it's priority. It's a priority hit that speeds you up and makes you faster than everything. You can use it every other turn. That's kind of crazy. If it had some weaker move, then this would definitely be low elite and probably weaker than Spinal Constrictor. But group acceleration keeps it up. Alright, that is all the mid-elite dinos. Let's move on to high elite. So, we got 3 epics here. First is Diplodocus. Diplodocus is pretty underrated, I would say. It is a beast. It has easily the best matchups out of any non-hybrid in the game, or especially out of and also I think it's got better matchups than epic hybrids too. So it has insane health and really good damage. We don't talk about the speed. And then it's a simple, well, actually semi-simple, cunning, fierce, resilient moveset. So Resilient Strike, Decelerating Rampage, and Shield Advantage. Swapping Soul is kind of useless. So you either go Resilient Strike or Shield Advantage on turn 1. It really depends on what you're fighting. If you're fighting a Fierce creature, then probably go Resilient Strike. If you're fighting a Resilient, then go for Shield Advantage. If you're fighting for Cunning, fighting against Cunning, then depends what the Cunning creature is. And then Decelerating Rampage to dish out damage. It's 4,500 in 2 turns, which for something at 6,000 health, that's good. While it has losing matchups against some of the top threats, it beats a lot of creatures in its general area on the tier list. Yeah, Diplodocus is really strong. Next is Thylakotator. Thyla is probably the best probably the best epic in the game and the best epic hybrid in the game, therefore making it the best non-legendary / unique / apex in the game. Thyla is really good. It's got good health and okay speed with low damage, but this damage in this thing is absolutely worthless. And then it's D-Cell immune, which is great. Superiority Strike is good. Deliberate Prowl is it's not really that good. But then Maiming Wound and Rending Takedown, you are going to 2-shot everything in the game that doesn't either remove the bleed or resist the bleed / rend or distract / dodge it. Yeah, it's going to 2-shot a lot of things. And a Swap and Distraction allows it to basically swap in for free. This thing's really good, and I admittedly wouldn't be surprised if this gets nerfed in the future like Sarcorixis did. Before 2.7, Sarcorixis was definitely better. But since Sarcorixis got nerfed, this takes the top spot for epics. Alright, the last epic in this tier is Woolly Rhino. Woolly Rhino is infamously OP for an epic. It's got 1,500 damage to Swap and Stunning Strike. This is one of 2 creatures to have that. The other ones we'll get to later. We'll get to in the next episode. So, it's got high health with a little bit of armor, high damage, and low but not super low speed. And then it's 50% bleed resistant, 50% vulnerable resistant. Only one of those really does anything. And then it's got an impact on a swapping creature with 1,500 base damage. You could probably see why this thing gets so much hate. You could swap it in, do 1,500 damage, then do another 2,250, and then if you can survive the next hit, then do another 1,500. If you can't, then just 100% shield until you can swap out. Yeah. This thing is super annoying. It is the absolute bane of epic and even legendary tournaments, and I hate it. Except I also really like using it. Yeah, it's super powerful. Alright, on to the legendaries. First is Acrocanthops. Acrocanthops is one of the weakest creatures in this tier, but it's still a strong legendary. If this were a boosted arena meta tier list, this would be absolutely top tier. This would be High Tyrant, even Overlord tier. This thing is absolutely busted in a boosted environment. Unboosted, it's not quite as OP, but it's still really good. So it's got really good base stats. It's got good health and absolutely ridiculous damage with low but not super low speed. The resistances are kind of bad. Yeah. But the moveset is what's special. Cutting Strike, Fierce Impact are regular, decent moves. Revenge Distracting Strike is... Well, it would be good if this creature didn't have Revenge Rampage, which Revenge Rampage is what makes this thing good. Revenge Rampage with 1,800 base damage. You can see why this is high elite. That is a massive combo. 7,200 damage. That is the highest 2-turn combo in the entire game, excluding cloaks. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, Acrocanthops is good. It does get beat by faster cuttings and by some of the stronger resilience, but fierce creatures generally lose. And then resilience that aren't super top tier awesome also lose. Alright. Aloraptor. This is my mascot, and for a good reason. I'm rather choosy when it comes to mascots, and this is my mascot easily now. Yeah, this is easily my most controversial opinion, but I think Aloraptor is the strongest legendary in the game. Hear me out. So, yes, we are in a very swappy environment. And yes, frail creatures with 3,000 health don't usually do well in a swappy environment. But there's a reason I love this thing. Uh, well, multiple reasons, actually. So first, 3,000 health still isn't actually, like, that terrible. Just look at Pyrotator with 2550. Although I will admit that that is its biggest shortcoming is low health. However, looking at its other stats, 1700 base damage, it's 126 speed. That is the highest speed damage, like overall speed and damage combo in the entire game. And not only that, it's also got a 30% crit chance, and then it can't be slowed down and has 50% distract resistance and can't be swap prevented. Yeah. And then getting to its moveset, it gets even more crazy. Okay, Cunning Strike, it looks kind of normal. And then you get to these other three moves. 2 Rampages, and Running Takedown with 1700 base damage, 126 speed, and D-Cell Immune. Let that sink in. These are all the reasons why I think this is the best legendary in the game. And also, I would say probably the strongest high elite creature as well. Or second strongest, or maybe second strongest. Yeah. This thing's crazy, and I love it. It's the only non-unique I use on my team. Yeah, I love it. So much damage, though. But before my comments start blowing up, I'm gonna move on. Alright, Alsinosaurus. Alsinosaurus is probably in the middle of this tier. Actually, no, it's probably in the lower end of this tier. Alsino's a really good legendary, so high health, well, high-ish health, but with armor, so it's really high health with that armor. Really high base damage, and then really low speed. No resistances, which is unfortunate. And then its moveset is a fierce moveset with instant charge. So, armor-piercing impact really isn't good, but the other moves are pretty good. Fierce Strike's fine. Fierce Impact's actually pretty good on this. It's the move you'll probably use most. And then instant charge, which is what makes this thing high elite. Instant charge, it's just turn 2, you gotta do a priority 1800 damage with a stun. So it's got 4,502 turns, which is pretty decent. Yeah, Alsino's good. Actually, no, that's with if you do instant charge. If you don't do instant charge, then that's still a pretty respectable 5,402 turns. Yeah. Stevia. Stevia is the newcomer in High Elite, and it is. But when it came out, when 2.7 came out, I actually thought this is more mid elite, but top of mid elite. Now I 100% say it's high elite. This thing is really good. It's got the highest health out of any flock creature with 1350 per flock member, and it's a flock creature, so this should be more like 6,000 health. It's got the highest damage of any flock creature, and it's got the second lowest speed, but it's still really fast. The resistances are actually pretty bad. If it had D-Cell Immune, then it might even approach Tyrant. But it doesn't. It doesn't have Dodo's D-Cell Immune, and it also doesn't have Innocent Stevia's Distract Immune. But I don't think it really needs those resistances. So Flightless Strike is okay, I guess. Protective Alert is really good because once you lose the first flock member, then you can just bring it back while also cleansing and then distracting the enemy. And if you do it on turn 1, it won't heal, of course, but it will make the enemy vulnerable. Revenge Distracting Impact. You can come in and do 2,800 damage on Revenge while also distracting them. And an Alert Decoy, which is what makes this thing insane. It's a guaranteed crit, rampage, and run. And it's only disabled if you've lost 2 of your 3 flock members. But you can bring those back by using the Protective Alert. Although it also kills one of your flock members anyways. But that's still kind of crazy. That Alert Decoy will do 3,500 damage. And then with that Revenge Distracting Impact on turn 1, with the Revenge combo, that is a lot of damage. I believe that's 6,300 damage in 2 turns on a flock creature. That's pretty crazy. This is a really good legendary, and it definitely deserves high elite. Dracoceratops. Oh boy, the infamous thing itself. Dracoceratops. Oh boy. This is probably better than Woolly Rhino. Yeah. This thing is known for being insane. And, well, it's just one of the most unfair creatures in the game. Remember when this thing was the best creature in the game? Had Swap-In Shattering Rampage? As fun as that was, like, as funny and crazy as that was, and sometimes fun that was, please don't bring that back. So yeah, really high damage and pretty good speed for a swapper with alright health. Can't be swap evented, yay. And it's got a turn 1 move that will cleanse its swap event and then do 2250 damage. With the swap-in that just shaves off 40% of the enemy's health. Yeah, that's crazy. And then 100% stun chance move that you can also use in turn 1, which is really not that useful. Fierce Impact, another 2250 impact. So after you swap it in, you can do another 4500 to 2 turns. We're doing a lot of damage. Yeah, it's basically the fierce equivalent to Woolly Rhino. Okay, Indominus Rex. So Indominus is also near the bottom of this tier with Acrocanthops, but I still think it's pretty underrated in my opinion. It's better than Indominus Gen 2. It's got more health and more attack and then 1 less speed. Its resistances are really good. And then its moveset is actually probably worse than Indominus Gen 2's, but still pretty good. Armor Piercing Impact is unless you're doing Cloak, then Armor Piercing Impact is what you're going to do in turn 1. And so if you do Armor Piercing Impact, Armor Piercing Rampage, that is a 52-50 combo, which is good. And then if you do regular, like if you don't bring in Revenge, and you do, or like say you bring it in on turn 1 and you swap into it, then you do Cloak, Armor Piercing Rampage, without a crit, that's going to be 6,000 damage. If you're bringing it into the Revenge Cloak, then that would be 9,000 damage. So this thing pumps out damage like crazy. Yeah, Indom's good. I remember when I used this thing. It was good. It was my first legendary I ever got back in 2018. Alright, Aetherium. Another very powerful legendary. In fact, all the legendaries in this tier are really good. Yeah, Aetherium. So, you may think it's actually kind of weak due to it having low health. But first, it has armor, and second, the damage and moveset have heavily make it up. So, this moveset may not seem that great until you realize 1500 base damage with Persistent Ferocious Strike and an Impact. And then 115 speed with Dig In, which will basically increase that speed to 127 for 2 turns. Yeah. I don't really care about Tony Bow. Don't even look at it. So, Persistent Ferocious Strike plus Resilient Impact. That is over 5,000 damage in 2 turns. I think 2250 plus... let me see what 2250 times 1.5 is. I suck at math. What just happened? $2250 times 1.5 plus 2250. 5625 in 2 turns. Wow. Yeah, that's really strong. If this is going to be used in every tournament where Legendary is the highest rarity, and even some in tournaments with Uniques too. It's a monster. Okay, Forestora. Forestora is like Smilocephalosaurus, but I would say it's better. That's the wrong creature. There you are. So, Forestora. If it had its old 1500 damage and regular Rampager run, this would be Tyrant, 100%. This would be better than Aloraptor, and it would definitely be the best Legendary in the game. But it's high elite now because of the nerfs it got. So, it's actually good health for a Cunning. 1400 damage, which we'll see why that's still really good later. And 130 speed, really fast. It's got stun resistance and swap prevention immune, so I would say those are decent resistances. And then the moveset. So, Cunning Strike is pretty good. Instant Rampage is absolutely amazing, which is why this thing is high elite. If it just had, like, regular Rampage, it would be mid elite. Instant Rampage is a lot. It's awesome. Like, you could priority turn 1, 2800 damage. That's a lot. Delayed Rampage and Run is actually what keeps it out of Tyrant. If it had a regular Rampage and Run, it would be at the top of High Elite, if not Tyrant. And then if it had the old 1500 base damage with that, it would easily be Tyrant. And then Sidestep is also really good to just fill that turn 2 in between the 2 Rampages. And then Swap and Stun is admittedly one of the weaker Swap and moves, but for this creature it works. Though I would honestly prefer Swap and Dodge. Okay, Spinonics. Spinonics is quite underrated. It's a really good bleeder. In fact, it's probably the second best bleeder in the game, except the only one that's stronger is Thyla. But yeah, it's still really strong. I like this thing. Its base stats aren't really that good. It's got decent health, low damage, and decent speed. However, it is slow immune, which is good. The moveset's awesome. The moveset is what makes this thing good. Minor Rending Attack is good. Lethal Wound is good. Precise Rampage is alright. Definite Rampage is good. And then it's got no escape. So, there's multiple options you could do. You gotta do Precise Rampage and Definite Rampage and do 4,000 2 turns, which is admittedly low, but combined with Thundering Takedown, that's an impressive 3-turn combo. Yeah, this thing specializes in dealing with Resilience. And Resilient are the meta right now, so this thing is really strong. Why do I keep clicking that when I'm clicking the back arrow? Ugh. Alright, that was the last legendary of this tier. So, let's move on to the uniques. Antarcto Venator. Antarcto Venator is the weakest of the high elite uniques. However, it is better than it used to be, despite what some people say. Pre 2.6, I would say this is mid elite. But now I would say it's bottom high elite. It's still kind of mediocre for unique, but it's not bad. Not anymore. So, it's got okay health with 20% armor, mid-level damage, and low speed. But it's a counterattacker, so we'll get to that. It's got a good set of resistances. And then Cunning Strike's fine. Revenge's Adversity used to be really bad in this thing until it got a counterattack. Now it's pretty fun. It's pretty alright. Vuln Impact is actually not as bad as some people say, because if you go something that it counters something that isn't vulnerability immune, that Definite Rampage is going to do a lot of damage. Yeah, so a vulnerable Definite Rampage, that Definite Rampage would do 3450 damage. In fact, 3450 plus 1725. $51.75 in 2 turns. But, not only that, you have this counterattack, so you can just go ahead and add 1150 to that. So that's 63.25 in 2 turns, which is a lot. So medium nullifying counter isn't like a great counterattack, but it's fine for what this creature is. And then swap and distraction is a free swap. Yeah. It's fine, I guess. I do think people still overrate it a bit, though. Dracoceratosaurus. Dracoceratosaurus is this close to being Tyrant. In fact, I forgot about this thing when I said Aloraptor at the top in this tier. This is definitely better. Dracoceratosaurus is amazing. I would say it's actually slightly better than Dracoceratops. Mostly because of the D-cell immunity. So it's got a little bit less health, but more damage and more speed. And it's got D-cell immunity on top of the swap prevention immune. And then its moveset, it's got Fierce Impact swap out for Cunning Rampage, and Fierce Strike swap out for Cunning Strike. So it can't get the shields, which hurts. If it had, say, Fierce Rampage or Fierce Strike, then it would be Tyrant easily. But still, you swap it in. Let's say you bring it in against a 4,500 health creature. So you take away 40% of that, which I believe is 1,800. Yeah, 1,800. And then you could do a Cleansing Impact, do 2,400. And then a Cunning Rampage, 3,200. So it would already be nearly dead after cleanse. So 4,200 with the 1,800 plus 2,400. Plus 3,200, which is which would make it that 7,400 damage. That's a lot. That's a lot of damage. A lot of times you just need to swap it in, do cleansing impact to get out. Yeah, it's really good. Definitely an improvement over its old self. Earl Adam, another controversial opinion here. Earl Adam is vastly underrated in my opinion, and I like it a lot. So it does suffer a little bit in the resilient meta. I get that. But it still has redeeming qualities, and I think that's enough to bring it into High Elite. Not only into High Elite, but the higher end of High Elite. Yeah, it's got low health, yes, but it's got good damage and good speed, and a 40% crit chance with really good resistances, and then a pretty good moveset, too. Rampage, it could do a good turn 1 thing. Striking Impact, also really good against, like, the fierce creatures. Minimal Speed Up Psych, you can speed up past the faster cunning creatures. And a Revenge Cloak. Revenge Cloak is obviously not, like, that great in a resilient meta, but it still has some good uses, especially against things that can't get rid of that dodge, or shield, or like, shield/dodge in the hit. So, you can bring it in. Revenge Cloak, on turn 1. Then, Rampage, 9,000 damage. If you get a crit, then that makes it even higher. What's 9,000 divided by 4? 11,250 with a crit. That's a lot. Yeah. Earl Adam's good. It's underrated. If you're still not convinced, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, it beats some creatures, some pretty good creatures up here. Yeah. It beats a good amount of these tyrants. Okay. Next is Smilocephalosaurus. Smilocephalosaurus is, I would put it in a similar spot, maybe slightly higher than Earl Adam. Smilocephalosaurus is still vastly overrated, much like its legendary ingredient, but it's still good. It's very tanky with mid-level health, but 50% armor. Its damage output's its main issue. It's only got 4,400 in 2 turns, which for a creature that's this high on the list is not very good. Although it is fast, it still has a decent set of resistances. Shield Strikes are still awesome. Rampage and Run is still good. Yeah, it's basically defensive Smilocephalosaurus. It's just not going to two-shot as many things as Smiloceph does, but it's going to survive more hits. Alright, Testacornibus. Testacornibus is another resilient unique. This one's a fast resilient unique, though. So, 40% armor with mid-level health, low damage but high speed, really good resistances, and a interesting moveset. So, this swap and on escape combo can be really good. You'd say you swap predict them, swap and heal 1,000. Then minor heal on escape, also heal 1,000. That's 2,000 health healed on a swap in. That's good, especially with 40% armor. And then you can heal another one on turn, another 1,000 with Dig and Taunt on turn 1, and also putting up a shield, speeding yourself up, and cleansing. Then, so you can do, I think the best move combo would be Resilient Impact, Spear of Vulnerability, then Devastation. So this is less of a 2-turn damage dino, it's more of a 3-turn damage dino. So Resilient Impact with Spear of Vulnerability, that's 2,500, plus the 4,500 Devastation. So that would be 7,000 damage, which is a lot. So yeah, on paper, may not seem that great, but in practice, it's good. Okay, Thoradolosaur. Thoradolosaur is in the, I would put it in the exact same spot as Alsino, in this tier. Yeah, Thor is, it's definitely better than Alsino when boosts are included, but unboosted, I would put them about even. So, Alsino has better direct matchups, but Thor has better setup potential. So, it doesn't have Alsino's armor, but has the same health. It's got a little bit less base damage, but it's got a rampage and higher crit chance to make up for that. And it's got 1 less speed, which I don't think that matters at all. It has resistances, unlike Alsino. This is really the only one that matters. And then its moveset is, I would say it's a direct upgrade. So, Still has Fierce Impact, Fierce Strike, but it has a Shattering Rampage instead of Armor Piercing Impact, and still got Instant Charge. So you can do turn combo with Fierce Impact, Group Shattering Rampage. That is nearly 6,000. I believe that is 5950 damage, which is a lot. Or you could do Instant Charge on turn 2, stun them, maybe getting the kill, and then just light up whatever comes in next with that Rampage. Thor's still a decent unique. I still think it's a little bit underrated in an unboosted environment, though of course it's still not that good for a unique. I would put it slightly better than Antarcto Venator, but worse than the other uniques in this tier. Alright, our last creature of this video is Utah Rhinox. So, Rhinox is, I would put it like smack dab in the middle of this tier, maybe slightly higher than that. Rhinox is actually pretty good. So it's got reasonable HP for a Cunning, although it's still low overall. Really high damage, high speed, okay resistances. Cunning Strike's good, Rampage and Run's great, Attack the Impact's good, Instant Charge is really good. So, Attack the Impact plus Rampage and Run is already a combo that will do 5,600. But if you mix Instant Charge in there, Attack the Impact plus Instant Charge, 4,000 plus 3,200 on turn 3, that's 7,200. Which is really great. Yeah. It's a good dino. It's still gonna lose to a lot of resilient creatures, and it's gonna lose to most faster Cunnings that can't, like, distract it a lot. But I still like it. Anyways, that's the end of this video. The last video of the main tier list will be these tiers right here. Low Tyrant, Mid Tyrant, High Tyrant, and Overlord. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to. Leave your thoughts in the comments and on the Discord, which is linked in my channel's, like the About tab on my channel page. Yeah, see you in the next one. Goodbye.